Yes, today I want to talk about the I want to talk about the cosmetic lengthening surgery. And pretty much cosmetic lengthening surgery is this surgery in which can make you taller. It involves cutting your bones or smashing your bones with a saw and then using an apparatus to elongate your bones. Like basically, the bone is damaged, and then there's this mechanical apparatus called lazob, and you have to. And then it's stretched out. Like the cells can grow back, and they can grow back taller. And like lymph lengthening surgery, from my understanding, it has been around since the 1950s or 1960s. I think it was a Russian guy called Ilzarov who first developed it. And it wasn't cosmetic. It was for people who suffered from dwarfism. I think from people who are extremely with a genetic condition, dwarfism, that makes them very short. And maybe they had, I think their condition gave them breathing problems and stuff, because their torso was maybe large and their legs were so small. So this surgery, this lymph lengthening, it wasn't cosmetic as first. It was meant to help people with dwarfism extend their legs and grow a bit taller. And it was also for people who fractured it, so that their bones would be set into place. Because in the past, like people who had bone fractures, oftentimes it was hard to heal. Like the bones would grow back, but they would grow back twisted. So this apparatus for lengthening, it would keep your legs straight. Um, but I'm not sure when exactly lymph lengthening became cosmetic. Um, I first found out about this procedure because I was wondering, like, I wasn't happy with my height. I'm like, is there a way to grow taller? And then I found out about cosmetic lymph lengthening surgery. And it's kind of I know the looks max community is something that's somewhat new, mainstream in the last couple of years, but I'm a millennial, so I first found about this lymph lengthening surgery. I found this about in like in the early 2010s, maybe like 2012, 2011. And I found about it through a forum called Make Me Taller. And this was like in 2012. And this forum, it was about people who were short, or not even short. Some men were like average height, maybe 5'8", but they wanted to be taller because maybe they wanted a better aesthetics. They wanted to um, be taller, to have uh, better aesthetics, to look better. Like I said, there was this forum I joined about men who, some of them were short, some of them were like 5'8" and wanted to be taller. Maybe they had a taller girlfriend and they didn't want to look short next to her, or maybe they were in business, they were somebody like an executive in the company, and they wanted to look taller to enhance their career. Like I mentioned before in my previous videos, like a lot of CEOs are over 6 foot, so it can't be a coincidence. So maybe being taller would enhance your um your chances of having a better career. And the owner of this forum, it was called Make Me Taller. It was this black British man, and from what I remember, he was like very successful career, and he wanted to be taller than his girlfriend. He was this black British businessman, and he had like a Eastern European Russian girlfriend who was tall, and he wanted to be taller than her. So that was the reason. And it was basically man this getting lymph. This forum was basically man getting lymph lengthening surgery and describing their journey, basically, like getting the surgery, if they felt any pain and stuff like that. And and yeah, lymph lengthening surgery, I would say, within the current context of maxing, it's a bit more extreme. It's something more extreme compared maybe to like a nose surgery, um or maybe something like a jaw surgery. It's kind of extreme because it's invasive, right? And it involves breaking your bones basically. And I know there's two types of limb lengthening surgery. There's one in the upper legs, one in the lower legs, tibia and femur. And usually people do one at a time and then go back and get another surgery to get the most height. And I believe you can do up to like you can grow up to 4 inches, like 10 centimeters with this surgery. But the issue, right, is your proportions might not be good, so you also have to sort of discuss with the surgeon how your proportions would look after the surgery, right? Because you could have really long legs and your torso might be small compared to your legs, so you might end up completely disproportionate. And if you're trying to have good aesthetics, um, your proportions might not be good, so that will not help you. And it's an invasive surgery, and I guess there's also some other risks to it, like what else can happen? Like you can get an infection. There's also, I think, something called a blood embolism, or is it blood embolism? Is I don't think it's something that happens frequently, but during the surgery, like a piece of the bone could enter your bloodstream and go up to your heart and clog it, and you could have like a heart attack. So that's another risk. There's infection. It could get infected because you're having these in the El Zarab method, you having like these pins sticking into your skin, into your bone to stretch the bone, and you could have an infection. So you need to make sure you keep it clean. You disinfect everything, and yeah, it's you can get an infection that can go to your blood bones. It can enter your bloodstream, so it's somewhat risky. It's a fairly invasive procedure. Um, and the other downsides that I can think of course, are let me see, that it's fairly you need rehabilitation, right? Like you need to learn to walk again. It's not only the cost of the surgery, it's also the cost of rehabilitation. It can take 6 months. So you you need to learn to walk again. You need to hire a physiotherapist, and there's no guarantee. Like for example, if you're an athletic person, you like to walk, you like to run or play tennis, or move your knees, your joints a lot, something like that. There's no guarantee you'll be the same. So it's somewhat for I would say limb lengthening is somewhat like a looks maxing. Um, it's a bit more of extreme, right? It's not just going to the gym, hitting the treadmill, losing weight, or getting a nose job. It's something that requires a big commitment, learning to walk again, and it's also somewhat expensive, right? Here in the U.S., there's a center in Las Vegas. I think it costs like $100,000 to do the limb lengthening surgery, and you during that time during the recovery, you might not be it takes 6 months to recover, so you need to take like 6 months off from your job for the surgery. You need to have some savings. $100,000 for the surgery. You won't be able probably to work during that 6 month period when you're recovering, unless you have like a remote job, or a job like software engineer or data science, where you don't have to be physical, right? Like if you work like as a construction worker, or Amazon delivery the driver, or something like that, you won't be able to work during that period. So you need to have some savings and stuff. And it's kind of restricted. No, it's kind of not everyone can do it. Um, I do think there could be benefits to it. Like if you're really short, like me, like 5'5", if you can get like 2 or 3 inches of height, that it could make your life better. Um, I think it could make, um, maybe help you cope more. You're not as short. You don't have people mogging you when you go outside, and you'll also be more attracted to women, and probably get more respect from men too. So you won't have the psychological burden of being short and being mogged all the time because of your height, and having to deal with some of like the stigma of society for being short. Like you have a short man complex. I mean, you'd be taller, so you'd be average height if you're short and get it. So you won't have with so many psychological burden of being short, right? But yeah, that's just my thoughts on lymph lengthening surgery. Um, what do you think about lymph lengthening surgery? Would you get it despite the costs? Um, I know some of the costs can be mitigated by going to India, Turkey. You can get it there, but um, obviously you're taking more of a risk in a third world country to get the surgery. Like the infections might spread more quickly. The care might not be as good. So you're taking a risk. You can do it in Turkey for $25,000, but you're also taking a risk because I don't know if the medical is good there. Um, so what do you think? Would you get lymph lengthening surgery if you're short? Would you look smacks? Do you think it's too extreme? Um, are there any other ways do you think that they'll be to grow taller in the future? I've read stuff with stem cells maybe or genetic engineering. The problem with growing taller, of course, it's your height is your bone structure, right? So that would be very difficult. It's like your organs like are enclosed within your bones. So growing taller, you'd also have to move your organs around. That's why I think growing taller is one of the hardest looks maxing. Like lengthening just seems like the only option right now, unless you're a teenager, you're like still going through puberty, or there might still be ways. Like if you're a teenager and you're still going through puberty, your growth plates are not close yet, so you might be able to do stuff like human growth hormone or get certain proteins and stuff like that that make you taller. But from what I heard, some of these HGH, human growth hormone, it can lead to difficult with the cardiovascular when you're older. So I don't know. You have to pick your poison, I guess. So would you do lymph lengthening surgery, or do you think it's too extreme? How would you cope with being short, or how would you look smacks when being short? Um, Thank you.